with me techie stuff.
Oh yeah, well, that's normal, isn't it, really? There we are. This meeting is now being live streamed perfectly at 7 p.m. in the UK, British summertime, on this autumnal equinox, whatever that means. So just bear with me a second while
Yeah.
I just check now that this has gone live onto my Facebook profile. And then there we are. Yeah, that's looking good. Ria, hello, my love. Nice to see you. Ria is here.
Hiya, Ria.
Yeah. And I call her Daya for some reason. But anyway, that's another story. Hang on a sec.
I'm sure she appreciates that.
Hello, Heather, my love. And so people can put comments up, and then as we go along, if I get an opportunity, I'll look at the comments. So just
Amazing.
next thing I just need to do is just put the volume up a little bit for myself. Caroline, also known as Kaz, or do you, now that you've become like posh, do you not get called Kaz anymore?
Well, you know, the poshness is still there, Joe. You know, I am quite posh, and I do like my name. And do you know, my name is actually means free woman. It's got two meanings, and it's free woman and song of happiness. So since I learned that, I was like, oh my God. I mean, I love my name anyway, but yeah, I don't mind roughing it a little bit though, and still being called Kaz.
Yeah, because you used to be quite rough, didn't you, when you lived by us up here?
In the Wirral, love.
In the Wirral. Is it in the Wirral or on the Wirral?
On the Wirral. I don't know.
On the Wirral. No, me neither. But it's lovely to see you. We had a chat some time back. It was quite a while back, wasn't it, really?
A couple of years ago.
Was it?
Yeah.
Has anything changed from then?
A little bit.
For the benefit of people who don't know you, let me just read out your profile.
Okay.
And it said, this week's guest on the show is my lovely friend Caroline Kaz Kelly, formerly from Wallasey on the Wirral, but now in Taunton. Are you still in Taunton?
Yeah.
In Somerset. Here's what Kaz has to say about herself, or Caroline, the free woman, I should say now that I know. She's navigating the constant shifts and changes within and without through failing forward. Now, I had to get back to you, say, do you really mean failing forward? And you said, yes, I do. So that's great that we can have a chat about that.
Yeah.
And then owning my shit with radical acceptance and moving with the flow of my heart. Sounds good. In faith that all is unfolding perfectly, sharing what I learn and leading by example, authentically me. This is a good bit. Also a little bit bonkers. Well, quite a lot, actually. And I've put, sounds like my cup of tea and right up my street, as they say. So, what do you mean by all that?
It's just been bonkers, hasn't it, Joe? You know? And when I said to you, I messaged you, didn't I? And said I was having a little, my ego was having a bit of a wobbly, because I was like, whenever anybody asks me what I'm doing or how I'm doing it or what I'm doing for work or anything like that, I'm just like, I've no idea. And the less I don't know, the less I know, the better, I think, really. And it has been that whole process of failing forward, you know, learning from my mistakes, shadows. There's all of the shits come up.
And I think that's positive, and I like failing forward, because it puts a sort of a human touch to it, doesn't it, really?
Absolutely.
My whole thing is, I think we're becoming extraordinarily ordinary.
Yeah.
And the more human we become, you know, really human, without all the pretentious head stuff.
Yeah.
Then I think that's probably what it's all about. You know, and Kaz, to be honest with you, you know, I could be totally wrong. And if I am, I don't care really, because all I'm ever wanting to do is find out the truth about reality. And, you know, and then someone will jump in and say, well, there's no such thing as your truth, there's my truth, and then there's the truth. And you know, where I'm at the moment is this is who I am. I've generally got no idea whatsoever what's going on. I make loads of mistakes and get told off for it. You know what I mean? I get accused of all sorts of things. I don't care, because in my heart and in my soul, I'm doing the best that I possibly can. You know what I mean? And I'm human like everybody else. I make mistakes. I've got lots to learn. And that's what failing forward sounds like to me. We're moving forward. We're still here. We're having a bash. And as they say, God loves a trier, whoever God is.
Yeah.
Maybe you could tell me who's this God character that's like supposed to be looking after us?
I just think in and all around, that's the heart bit, isn't it? Coming, glowing from your heart. And that's the own your shit. See, that's why I sent that to you, because I've sort of created own your shit from owning my own, recognizing that the love, the God within me, recognizing that within everybody else, recognizing, seeing the opportunities in everything, even when I've been hitting the deck and in just such a absolutely, real shit place, and failing forward, just learning, and and surrender, and I put that in my thing as well, didn't I? Radical acceptance, because that's something that keeps coming to me all of the time. Accepting where I am and loving that, accepting who I am and loving that, just as God is
God, whether it's a him, he, it, she, whether it's fluent or upside down or around the corner, whatever label we want to put on it, or I do, it's a feeling to me.
Yeah.
It's just a feeling, and it's like it's a feeling that sort of comes round me, and I feel all right. I feel looked after. I feel guarded and guided and protected. A
big warm hug.
Yeah, and that's what I feel. I have a feel. I've said this to other people. Like there's a big thing behind me like that with great big wings. It's like a big owl, and it's a sandy type color, right? And it wraps its arms around me, its wings or whatever the hell. And I get one of them, hey, and I just go forward with that as being guided, And some days I think it's like a guardian angel. Sometimes I think it could be an extraterrestrial. Sometimes I've got absolutely no idea, but I know when it's not with me, because when it's not with me, I feel disconnected, and I go back to being little Joe, and I get tremulous. I don't know what that word means. It just came out. I get tremulous, trepidatious. Oh, that's all the T's tonight. And I feel lost again. But, fortunately, I was given a set of tools a long time ago. It's a bit like your internet connection going down, really. I was given a set of tools to reconnect and get back, get the wireless connection. And I like the wireless because there's no wires involved. It's just like an invisible thing that I reconnect to, And other than that, Caroline, I just keep it as simple as possible. And it's almost like, paging the oracle. There used to be a thing on the BBC years ago where if you didn't know, you could it was like before this Alexa thing, you could page the oracle and you can get all the answers, and you could book a holiday as well while you were on it, And this was like 5 o'clock in the morning when you couldn't sleep, and it'd come on. And I've lost my train of thought. I'm going to hand over back to you now to say something.
You're going with the heart flow, Joe. That's it, isn't it? That's what I've learned more than anything, is coming back to the heart all the time. And like I say, the surrender and moving with the flow, knowing that there's no wrong choice. That's the failing forward. No wrong choices. Things don't happen by mistake. I saw a lovely thing. Namaste. No mistakes.
What to say? Say that again.
Namaste is no mistakes.
I don't understand.
Namaste.
Yeah.
When
namaste. Yeah.
Also can mean no mistakes.
Oh, right. I thought you said number 6. I thought, she must be talking about sacred geometry and numbers and numerology and stuff.
Oh, no, I'm not getting that wacky.
Oh, well, I am. Honest to God, people put up the number 15 plus 42 came up, and it was very significant that my head's wrecked already. And I'm thinking, Yeah,
Yeah.
because it always comes back to number one. And I was never very good at mathematics at school, and nothing's ever changed, you know. So sacred numeracy and numerology is not good for me. But I tell you what I do like, and I do sort of seem to be able to get hold of it, is sacred geometry,
Yeah,
you know.
beautiful.
And I can see in my mind sometimes, you know, circles and pyramid shapes and all that, you know, all wiggling about and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't really try and get into the analysis of what's happening anymore unless it's really, really clear,
Yeah.
because I can easily get distracted from what I want to do. And what I want to do is enjoy my life to the full.
Yeah.
And that's it really, you know, and try not to do any harm. But, you know, sometimes you just got to look in the wrong direction and you cause harm to somebody,
Yeah.
but it's never intentional. You know what I mean?
The offensive.
Yeah. You've
what-
offended me. Well, I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. Well, you should apologize. I'm not fucking apologizing for something that I didn't do. No, I won't. Right. Well, you've hurt me. Tough.
Where the love and light and a little bit of fuck you comes in, eh?
Well, absolutely. Well, no, mine's more like love and dark and very, very dark, and up yours, you know what I mean, most of the time. And I'm not going to pretend, because and Caroline, I'm going to ask you a really serious question here now. Do you judge anybody?
Yeah.
Oh, do you? Thank God for that. Feel all right now then. I feel like I'm in good company, right? Because my head is forever judging all the time, right? And I know that I shouldn't, but I can't help myself, right? Yeah. Because my head says to me, or some part of me says, look at the state of that there. Oh, God. And people say to me, you know, you're supposed to be spiritual. I never said to anybody that I was spiritual, right? Who I say to them, who told you that? Who told you that?
Yeah.
So that's another thing, is what is
breaking out of the boxes, aren't we? We're all breaking out of the boxes of what does spiritual look like? What does being human look like? What does, you know, all of it, you know, we're all just humans being, we're all just ourselves, authentically us, as much as we can be. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't judge. I catch myself.
Yeah.
I'll catch myself because I don't like being judged, and I'll catch myself doing it and then go, oh, hang on a minute, love, you know, take a minute. And that's part of the times where I think when as we're sort of we keep moving forward and realizing and recognizing the things that feel uncomfortable within us, or the things that we don't like, you know, well, they're just a reflection of me. So I'm gonna go, right, what's within me then? What's out of alignment within me that is making me think that way or judge that way? What is it that I'm seeing in them that's actually me?
Yeah, I do. I was only joking. I do exactly the same thing. My head's always judging, you know, and that's the thing, that's judging all the time. But actually, my heart doesn't, you know what I mean? It doesn't, because there's two of them there, left and right brain. They're always having a go at each other, trying to work things out, and therefore judging. But in the end, my heart, it's just like one. I see that the heart is the solution, in that it does dissolve judgments if you want it to allow it, you know. And my thing now is, it's like I go through my life like a sonar, you know, beep, 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 beep. And if it reflects back, I get like a trigger feeling or a disturbance. And then it almost like says to me, have a look at this and see why you're having that reaction, you know. And it's always ego. It's always ego, you know, because, you know, if we have a divine part of ourselves, because it's divine and it's all powerful, right? It's got nothing to worry about. So it can stay open and flowing, you know. Exactly. Here's something then, hard question again. What's the difference between conditional and unconditional love?
That's a good one, hey?
Because I don't think that humans, right, can actually, you know, they can't be unconditionally loving, in my view, you know, and this causes a lot of trouble with people, because I think it's only the divine working through us, if we allow our heart to open, that flows through us. I think that's unconditional love, in that it's not attached to anything. There's no object to it. It's just a flow.
Because we do, I mean, whether it's programming, the world we've been born into, whatever it is, we still place expectations and judgments on it, and usually ourselves more than anyone else, aren't we? We're our harshest judge. the harshest judge of ourselves. Like I was saying, faffing about with, you know, my ego was like, oh God, you haven't done this for a while, and that's a bit scary. And, you know, putting myself out there in a public domain again, which I haven't done for a while, because it's been enough to just be in my life and do what I'm doing. You know, a lot of the sort of work that I do on myself is reflected but in the relationships that I have. That's sort of where my journey has taken me, especially the past couple of years. But yeah, we do place expectations on and judgments on things, don't we? And there has been that unconditional love. It's sort of even the expectancy of that, but this is where we do the becoming bit, isn't it? And allowing that connection with our heart, and being okay in the unknowing of things, and letting go, releasing the, like you say, breathe out the shite, breathe in breathe out the shite, isn't it? You know, that's what we need to do, and come back to that heart-centeredness where the divine, you know, connects and flows through whatever way which is too big for our brains to comprehend. And release and let go of any expectations and judgments, so the unconditional love can flow from our heart.
You're good at this. You should have your own show, I think. Right? No, because I knocked the formula up a few years ago. P, and like, is inversely proportional to 1 over E, and people think, what's that mean? And it's peace of mind, or POM, right? Is inversely proportional to the amount of expectations that you have, you know. Yeah. And I do my lecture a bit now. Expectare means to look outwards, right? Oh, yeah, and so if we, because expect means to look outwards. So if we're always looking outwards for answers, we're never going to find what we're looking for, because inspectare means to look within, you see. And so the more we look within, and the more comfortable we are with ourselves, the less expectations, the less need to go outside for answers. Because my thing is, you know, out of the head and into the heart. And this is what I've learned about me, is everything that I need to know, right, is already contained within me energetically. And all I've got to do is tap on my heart. And I do this. If I'm stuck, and I'll say, dear heart, right, this is what I talk to myself, you know, dear heart, I'm buggered if I know what's going on here. I don't know whether to turn left or right. I wonder if you could give me some inspiration or intuition to show me what's the correct way to go forward. Not good or bad, the correct way and the correct action for me to take here, in line with what's best for me and for everybody else. And that I do honestly live my life like that. And about 1,000 times a day, I say to me heart, thy will, not mine, be done. And it sounds religious, but you know me, I'm probably one of the most irreligious people I've ever met, you know, because once I saw that as well, you know, it was easy for me to let go of all that stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So
you know what, I also I teach, or when I'm working, so I do emotional freedom technique. I practice that. I practice that for myself and teach, you know, and share it with others, because it's a practice that people can do for themselves. But I always come back to breathe into your heart space. Come and align with yourself. But another really good thing that seems to help people with that is, when we've got the mind chatter going on, whether your ego, whatever it is, when your mind's full, you're feeling overwhelmed or whatever, you've got all of the mind chatter. And we talk about mindfulness, don't we? Being mindful. Well, I say, if you've got that mind chatter, if you consider that that's mindfulness, your mind is full, it feels full, you feel overwhelmed, it's too much. Bring that mindfulness down to your heart, so you've got heartfulness, and breathe into that heart space. So you're taking that, you're being mindful that you've got all of this going on. Bring it down and breathe into your heart space.
I do exactly the same thing, and it paradoxically creates a mind full of empty space. And in that empty space, or the neutral point, or the 0 point, all the information that you need's been trying to get to you, you know. So I agree with you. There's a technical thing, because this is what I do for a living, you know. It's called the amygdala hijack. when the
Yeah.
ego is threatened in any way, shape or form, whether it knows it or doesn't know it, because 4/5 of the information that we take on board is processed below the level of our consciousness. And we don't know that, because mostly our conscious mind, whether we like it or not, until we become aware of it, is actually fed by emotional processing. And we've got no idea about it at all, because most people are so disconnected from their feelings that they're just basically, like I was for years, right? Just a head on a stick, really, and not paying any attention. I had no self-awareness, no body awareness. But now I'm very tuned in now to all the sensations that my body sends me, because as far as I'm concerned, discomfort in the body, right, is an indication that the blockage and the free flow of this energy, right, needs to be released, and that sounds like a very long-winded way to say, I feel stressed, I feel tense, I need to take a step back, do what you said, put it all in my heart, breathe in the light, breathe out the shite, create more space for like fresh air to come in. And so you get better ideas, and I'm sure there's all sorts of technical expressions for all that, but that's the way I say it,
Well, when you say that the amygdala in the brain is the prehistoric part, isn't it? That's the fight, flight, freeze response.
It is.
So we're in reactive mode then. So you're not feeling, you're just reacting it, and that whatever label you want to put on it, even acknowledging I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. That's what we do in EFT, and whether it's through the breath and just acknowledging, right, I'm feeling this. It brings you right back to the present, and acknowledging that I'm feeling this. I am not this, but this is what I'm feeling right now, and being present with that allows it to move through quicker as well.
I couldn't agree more. And I love EFT. I've practiced it for years myself. And it sort of fits in with all the flow of energy as far as traditional Chinese medicine goes, and the meridian system, So, and then again, that radical acceptance of this is how I feel at the moment. But the head wants to come in and say, don't admit that, right? Even to myself when I'm by myself. But I think by almost like speaking it out loud as well, right? Not necessarily in front of anybody else. That's an admittance. And it sort of opens the gate then to be dealt with. Other than that, and this is where I was for many, many years, I was in denial. I couldn't admit it to myself because my sort of mind would say, I'll work this out. And I know that I couldn't work it out because it was based on powerful defensive instincts, really. And you mentioned the amygdala hijack and the emotional reactivity. That's technically called a fight and flight response, And I was told a long, long time ago, step out of the boxing ring, Joe, for by this time you don't need to fight anybody or anything ever again, right? But my head said to me, well, what about all the shit going on in the world? And the person who helped me, called the sponsor, he said, I didn't say that you didn't take action, you just don't take reaction, because if you're reacting, you've had no opportunity to create space and to consider things deep down then. And I realize now it's okay to consider and reconsider, right? And if you don't know, he said to me, if you don't know what to do, Joe, don't do anything, right?
When in doubt, do not.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're on the same page. We're on the same wavelength.
Always.
We've met, haven't we, on Glastonbury tour?
We had a cuddle.
We did have a cuddle. We did that. I would have liked to spend more time, but I didn't know what the hell was going on, because when I go to Glastonbury tour, I get all these like wobbly feelings and stuff, Apparently it's something called grid working, right?
Yeah.
Apparently I'll put it on my CV. It depends who I'm sending it to, Healer, Reiki master, grid worker, international grid worker, right? But, I just get a feeling to go there, face a particular direction, put my hands up in the air, shake my arse about a bit, and then I get a feeling, okay, it's done, right?
You know what? I scared the shit out of my son one day because we were doing that, and again, it was something that I just felt called to do, and Amanda Lawrence was doing one of her consecutive weeks of grounding and all of that, and I did every week, even if I couldn't go to Glastonbury Tour, but I did it in the garden, and my dog used to come and sit next to me, and we would both do it, but I was stood in the garden like that up in the sun. My son came out, was like, "Fucking hell, what are you doing?" Thought it was a right weirdo. And I dragged them all up on Mother's Day. There was one of them that was Mother's Day, and we all ended up singing The Circle of Life on the side of Glastonbury Tour. We couldn't get to the top in time, so that was me and my kids and the dogs were doing our grounding and our grid work.
Yeah, yeah.
They had no clue. They really had no clue what they were doing. I was like, we just need to make a circle, stand in the sun.
I agree, just go with what I feel, really. And because I know quite a few people, sometimes I'll go to the tour and I'll be with one group, right? And then I'll run up the top a bit and be with another group. And then, because I'm just going to say hello to people, really.
Isn't it lovely, though?
And I think it must work. I see it in a sort of, it's like an electrical diagram, really. And we're like fuses that reconnect the sort of short circuits and things like that. But sometimes I do get pictures in my mind quite clear. And what I got was, the last time I was there, is the tour itself has been for a long, long time. It's been out of alignment. And like people like us, and I got a clear picture of this like crystal thing, like Superman, when Superman goes off and does that crystal thing in it. Well, I got a picture of like that, and it was going, and it was getting closer to the physical tour, and I thought, well, must be doing something right,
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, but I find Glastonbury a strange place, because part of me, it's like a dirty energy to me, part of it, and part of it's like a clean energy, so maybe that's all part of some sort of bigger cleansing process that's going on.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I think it does feel like that at times. But again, it's if the earth is doing the same as we're doing, breathing out the shite to bring in the light, it's going to be doing that, isn't it? And at these really strong, powerful, energetic points in the earth grid, if there's especially if there's just Gaia's doing it, the earth's doing it as well, isn't it? And if there's a lot of people coming together on these key dates, that's a big mishmash of energies going on, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, I agree entirely. And I think my view is that if your intention is to help the earth and help people, the whole thing is to help yourself and others as well. That's my view, and not being like a saint or anything like that, because I also used to give out a lot, but what I was always looking for was praise. I could see that clearly. Look, after all I've done for you. You know what I mean? And people would say to me, "You never fucking asked you, right? You're interfering back." I'm saying, but you don't understand. I see clearly this is what you need, and they'll tell me to piss off at the end, piss off. But we know what we need. We'll work it out for ourselves, thanks, And because I didn't know, because I thought that was the expected thing for me to do, and now I try like mad, if possible, right, to keep me nose out of other people's affairs. My wife won't agree with that in the slightest, you know what I mean? But the closer you get to home, the more difficult it is to practice, really,
Learned that a lot as well. I've really, I think, because I learned about codependency and codependent patterns when I was looking for advice as to how to support my compulsive gambler husband. And ironically, it was like, there's nothing, you need to do you. You need to do you, love, and you need to let them get on. And then I was like, oh my God, that took me down this whole path of self-discovery of, that recognizing and realizing where I had these codependent patterns playing on that gone back to childhood, and that thing of overgiving, because at some point in my past, it was I'd done something that made my mum happy.
Oh yeah.
And then it that was built on and became a pattern in my life of where I got my validation and acknowledgement from, and to a point of exhaustion. And then not necessarily doing things for praise, like consciously doing things for praise, but then if you don't get it, or you don't get that same back, this is where the expectations and judgments come in, isn't it? If you don't, not then getting the same back, you're disappointed and you're gutted and you feel like, you know, unvalued. And so that whole learning process of realizing and recognizing my own patterns and why, and then learning that the only one that can do that for me is me, that's been massive.
Well, I think now with this great shift of consciousness that's happening,
Yeah.
I think people, all people, if nobody's going to get away with this, in my view, of course, it could be wrong,
Yeah.
but it seems more and more that this great big shift is like a sweep, and it's underneath, really, it's underneath our psyches, and anything that's a bit sort of hidden, right, or being buried is now being forced to the surface. Yeah. So that we can see it. And this is where mindfulness comes in. And codependency is a massive one. And people think I'm not codependent. But from what I've said before, this is what I've learned about me. Might be wrong. But 4/5 of the processing is emotional processing. And we're codependent below the level of our consciousness. And these subtle things are going on all the time. It's a bit like when something's playing on your mind, you don't want to get it off your chest in case you hurt the other person or they kick off, you see. So it's an unhealthy, right, childlike behavior, you know. I mean, it's not childish as such, because if you're not aware of it, right, it's childlike. And we're still working off patterns that were probably set in the first 7 years. Now, I was a gross people pleaser because all I ever wanted to do was please me mum, please me mum. And I would listen to every word. So basically, all my actions and reactions in my emotional components was driving my mum's world, right? You know, I took on all her ideas, all her emotions, all her attitudes. And it was only when I nearly came to the point of killing myself did I realize that most of the choices I made in my life didn't belong to me, right? And that was when I woke up, you know. And here's something else that happened to me is I woke up with a fury. Look what they've done to me. And the bloke that guided me through this, right, he said to me, hang on, nobody's done this to you without your permission at some level. And then I got into then soul contracts, you know, I got into all that then. I didn't have a clue about any of this. And I know wholeheartedly now, and here's something I'm going to say now, right? Even children have signed a soul contract before they came here, right? And you can almost like pick up the emotional forces that are guiding them, right? Yeah. And if you've already worked out your own and you can see you've got a much better chance of helping the child to take an action to fall in line with who they really are, and not what you want them to be. And this is really hard, this, you know. And my big thing is I seem to be linked into helping the new sort of kids on the block, really, to remain themselves, because I honestly believe that they're bringing through clean information. And if we just watch them, then they'll show us how to behave rather than the other way around. Because, Kaz, look at look at the state of the world. It's you know, and the other thing I've learned is the world that we see is a projection of the past. Yeah. So there's absolutely no point in fighting anything that's going on here, right? No. I don't mean you don't have to take shit, but what I'm saying is, my understanding is that we get behind it and create something from a different heart intelligence now, and push the old shit away. And don't give it any more energy, because if it doesn't have energy, sooner or later it's going to die, you know. And it has to, you know, Christ, I didn't half go on there, but, you know, just to go back to the word codependency, I was told it's codependency is okay. It's faulty codependency. That's the problem, you know. But other people have got different words on now, and they get triggered by the word codependency, you know. So sometimes you can't win. Over to you, love.
Yeah, that's what I find as well. And try as much as possible to not have labels on things so much, although it's still very necessary in the world that we're in right now, isn't it? But yeah, it is. I completely agree with everything that you're saying. It's and even if you take the labels off and you don't use that word, it always comes back to something, that a pattern or a program or something, like we were talking about the amygdala in the brain, something that has become your way of being able to be in the world. Like with the ego, sometimes I'll say ego, sometimes I'll attribute it to like the little child that's tugging, the toddler that's tugging on your leg. I'm still here, give me attention. So you can choose to give that part of you the attention, which, I mean, most of the time we've been distracted, or, you know, we're not paying attention to that little child because we're too busy trying to please everyone else and make sure everyone else is okay. And it comes from a good place. And you go into the savior complex then as well, don't you? Of where, like you said, look at the state of the world. You can see it, and you can see how it could be so much better. And this is, again, the soul contract thing is why we're here now, isn't it? Hey. Why we've chosen.
That's what I feel. I mean, I'm sure that the labels and the way we explain things isn't exactly how it is. It's just that these are the sort of mumblings to try and explain how we see things. You know, one thing I realize is we've got to make meaning of our own metaphors. It's not for anybody else, right, really, to tell us what our story is. We've got to come to some sort of, this is the way I see it, you know. And we hold meetings now, it's almost like a round table. They're not discussions, actually. They're just, here's a theme. How do you see it, Joe? Right. And how do you feel it could be improved? And when you've done your 10 minutes talking, you know, this is the way Joe sees it. Then it gets passed on. This is the way Kaz sees it. And there's no argument then. It just gets sent round. All the stuff gets pushed out on the table. And it's almost like at the end of it, you can see all this stuff on the table. You can discard all the shit that's not working. And generally everybody agrees with that. And then you can take the stuff that is working and start to create with those building blocks, you know. And I think that's it. Because in academia, I was taught to argue, you know, you need to defend and argue your point and argue your position, you know. And really, it's probably not the way to go forward, really. It's to look at both sides, especially if we need situations where informed consent's important. Anyway, I'm not going down that pathway. But what I'm saying is, it will be important to be able to say, well, thank you for your information. I'm going to go and find out some more now. Have you given me all the information that's available? Right. Yeah. You know, and you get a sense of, no, they're only trying to market one side of it, really. When I get a sniff of that now, it causes me to go and look deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into it now. You know, and so it's all about discernment, and people are talking about that at the moment. How do you discern? Well, I discern by taking all the information in. I have a view, I'm not quite sure, which is unusual for me because I used to be, I know, fuck all, you know, right? And I take all the information, stick it in my heart, which is heart intelligence, and I'll say to me heart, can you please show me the truth here? And Kaz, I go with that then. You know, and it hardly ever lets me down, you know, and if it lets me down, it's just because I've had to take an action that's been tough, and the little baby in me doesn't want to have to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you know? Yeah, absolutely. And it is there isn't any mistakes. That just comes back to the failing forward, doesn't it? Yeah. You know, if you align with that and it feels right at the time, that's the right thing for me. That, you know, or that way of thinking, that resonates, that feels right within me right now. And if it ends up that, or, you know, becomes somewhere down the line that, oh, I didn't see that come in, or that's changed, or whatever, as everything seems to right now, it's just constantly, isn't it? This is what I've learned a lot as well, is moving with the constant shifts and changes. And just, you know, and again, that we're in the surrender and coming back to the heart. What's this about? And being okay in the unknowing of some things, you know, and aligning with that. And if we make a mistake, we make a mistake. It's only, you know, you can't, I think as being that way, aligning with that, even if you are making mistakes, it's coming from the right place. So it's not actually imposing anything on anyone else. It's not harming anyone else. It's that gives you the opportunity then to go, oh, that wasn't quite right. I'll shift that a bit. Or I'll choose, I say to my kids, I've said to them, as long as I've whatever I learn, I share with my kids and anyone else, you know, if it's been supportive and beneficial for me. But make wise choices. And going back to what you said about it, I now say make wise informed choices. Because there's been so much information overload, hasn't there? It's almost even more important to align with our heart and what is right for you, what feels right for you in any given moment. And you can always choose again.
Absolutely.
Even if it's in the next moment, you can choose again.
And I think from a sort of astronomical, you know, point of view and a planetary point of view, because I never used to get into all this stuff now, but it means such a lot to me now. You know, there are astronomical, astrological changes taking place in the cosmos, you know, and because we're on this tiny speck of dust, right, anything that's happening to the planet is affecting us, you know, and that's why we go on so much about equinoxes and full moons and blue moons and all this sort of thing, because they have massive impacts. If the moon can affect the tides like that, it can certainly affect the water in us as well and our brains, you know. So my thing has become now, right, Joe, you've got the day. It really doesn't matter whether the moon's causing the tides and your head to be affected. Focus on feelings first, right?
Yeah.
And then deal with it from there, really. And that's what I do. You know, my focus on feelings first is F off, right? You know, and I will get round one day to writing that book, you know what I mean? The F off approach to health and happiness. But if I've become more aware of my feelings, and I am becoming more and more sensitive all the time, right? And I think everybody is. And there's a point where you become more sensitive and you can't handle it for a bit. So you're kicking off all over the place. But if you really know that your emotional intolerance is actually emotional immaturity, if you can get that round, right, then as far as I'm concerned, you're on a great, you know, you're starting to understand what this is all about, you know. And in a way, don't tell anybody this, but in a way, a sort of welcome triggers because it's highlighting another part of me that needs clearing out, you know. And so that's where I'm up to most of the time. But sometimes I think I just can't be arsed with all this, you know. If I had a stun gun, I'd be the only person left alive on the planet, you know. And today was one of those days. It's like, just F off the lot of you and just leave me alone, right?
Yeah.
And you know, and that's why, you know, that's why it's dangerous as well to put people up on pedestals, you know, because if they fall down flat on their arse, you know what I mean? You can be very disappointed with the way that they're behaving, you know, but it's about being a human, you know. Nobody's perfect, in my opinion, you know, and even God doesn't know what's going on because he gave us free will choice. So as far as God's concerned, God, right, I'll do what I feel like. And I get this big guffaw now comes down my ear. That's what you think, Sonny. You know what I mean? So with regards to, so do you like, are you a practitioner of sorts then, or?
I do all sorts of things, and this is the thing. I think again comes back to them, what you know, what are you doing? I'm going with the flow of what life brings, and it has been about breaking out of the boxes of all of that, and like I say, just being in my life. And but I practice. I'm a practitioner of EFT, also Ho'oponopono, which I do most days still, and I'm a hypnotherapist. But since I learned that therapy, I did went down a bit of a path of etymology and learning about, you know, the meaning of words and how things have been misconstrued and you know, twisted and used wrongly. That therapy actually means the rape.
Oh, right.
So I call it hypno healing.
Right.
Or support people with hypnosis, you know, hypnosis. And I don't really do the work with that. That's I hold space for whoever it is, whatever that, to meet them where they're at, whether it's with EFT or hypnosis, actually. And because it's their subconscious mind that's doing the work, I just relax them. I just get them to a point where they feel really relaxed and open to what they are ready to receive and what they're ready to release or let go of, like we say, what shite they're ready to breathe out. And for the most part, really, people, they're at a point where they're ready to do that anyway. Yeah. So it's just holding that space for them to relax, where in their life they probably don't get that opportunity or give themselves that opportunity. So the fact when they come to me, they've already made that step to self-love, self-care, to give themselves that space and time, and I'm just holding that space for them and supporting them in just walking beside them, I suppose, really.
No, I agree with you, and I think once again, as this shift happens, then the guidance increases for individuals as well. Definitely. And it's almost like they find their way to you, or you find your way to other people, right? Almost like, I don't know, when people say, I don't know why I've contacted you, really. And I always think, yeah, well, I do, you know what I mean? And so you're right, they're almost like ready to let go of something. Yeah. But then it's about trust then, isn't it? And people who've been hurt in all sorts of ways, it's not easy for them to trust anybody, and sometimes it takes a long time, right, to get that sort of full trust, And there's only a few people in my life who I could just open up to and just tell them anything at all, There's probably about 5 people in the world that I could do that. And I don't see them for years. And I could just ring them up or get on here and say, this is happening. And then they'd say, is there anything else? No. Okay. See it in another 5 years. But that's the whole point. Because my view is that you can know about stuff that you've done in the past, right? That you may be ashamed of, you may feel guilty and all that. And you might know that, and you might share this with spirit. But I think that there's a step that needs to be taken by everybody where they need to share it with another human being. Yeah. Because I learned a long time ago that before humility must come humiliation. And it's the humiliation of being courageous enough to tell somebody else. And it's almost like, and a lot of the stuff I had to get off my chest, I was ashamed of until I realized that most of the things, right, were natural. They were natural that people go through. And as I did it, the bloke who said to me, he was almost smiling. I thought, don't be fucking laughing at me. He said, I'm not laughing, Joe, I'm smiling. He said, because that's normal. And I said, is it really? And he said, yeah, that's normal. And I started to get a balance then, So I love the phrase, and I say this every time, really, that you're only as sick as your secrets. Yeah. And what's in your mind will eventually, in my view, energetically, it manifests physically and material in a disease or an illness or something like that, So I think mind, body medicine. I mean, I call myself all sorts of things. People call me all sorts of things as well. But, I call myself an independent consultant in subtle energy medicine, And I sort of let go of religion. And all my work now is more or less associated with neuroscience and quantum physics now. That's where I'm up to. And about the 12 dimensions of possibilities of what it is to be a human being. And I think all those portals are opening now. And there's information streaming in, right, that we've never had before. It's always been waiting, but we've almost been epigenetically obstructed from receiving this now. And I think what's happening is all the shit's getting cleared out the way. And all the real good stuff starting to come in now,
Yeah. And well, if you've got a bucket that's full of water or shit or whatever, you can't fill it with any more until some of the shit out the bottom has gone. So it is, isn't it? And I think what we've been doing over the past few years is clearing out the shite. I did a video a few years back about this, and it's been coming up again recently with you saying about things coming up to be seen. I had an accident, and it's 10 years ago now. I was in a car crash, and the suspension fell out of my car. So I was driving, the car was started to weave like this, and I had my daughters in the car and a friend sat next to me, but we ended up tipping onto the driver's side. I hit the dashboard and was dragged through the window for about 80, I think it's 80 yards. I don't know if it's, yeah, I think it's about 80 yards. But basically I've had skin grafts and all of that to my arm, lucky to still have my arm, lucky to still be alive, you know. So that was another sort of awakening point of my life. But I use it as the analogy for, I had all sorts of gravel and glass and shit in my arm that had to be cleared out, and then I had to have these skin grafts. And over the past 10 years, every now and again, I'll get like a spot or something come up from underneath my skin, that shit, the glass or muck or something that's making its way to the surface, that was buried so deep that it wasn't cleaned out at the time when I had the operations and everything, and all of these procedures to get it all cleaned out. But it cuts from underneath. It's not like a normal spot that you would get in. I mean, I suppose even a spot that you get is gunk coming to the surface for you to pop and get rid of, but this cuts from the underneath, and it's uncomfortable for a minute, you know. It's not like really painful or anything, but it's uncomfortable, so that the shit can come out, and then it scabs over, and then it heals. And that's literally what's happening for us, isn't it? Over and over again.
I couldn't agree more. And I think what's happening is it's part of this soul embodiment now, where the soul's being activated by the spirit, if you like. And so the soul's like, it's kicking all the impurities out of us. But we've got to feel it. We've got to understand it. We've got to see it. And then we've got to let go of it, really. Yeah. But my understanding is as well, that if it's getting kicked out and you're trying to work out the process as it's happening, it'll get you. So just accept the process, let it get kicked out, let it get further down the street, and then say, look, I see what was happening now. So, because if you want the answer beforehand, that's only the ego that wants to know, and it wants to try and get away with what's actually coming up next, really. So it's almost like surrendering totally, you know. And this is why I think exercise, and if there's something playing on your mind, best get it off your chest. So share things with somebody that you can trust, who's not going to come in to say, if you're having relationship problems, it's not going to come to say, you want to get shut of him, he's a right bastard, him, and all. No, right? They just want to listen to what they've got to say, and then basically say, right, is there anything else that you'd like to get off your chest? Because in the end, you've got to, in my view, you've got to come to your own solutions. Because if somebody gives you some advice and you take it and it goes wrong, then they'll blame you, and they won't look at their own selves, you know. And this is so important, really. So as adults, you know, children, different kettle of fish, but as adults, we need to accept 100% responsibility for the choices that we've made and the consequences of those choices. And that's when you start getting free, in my opinion, you know. So exercise, massage, especially connective tissue massage, trigger point therapy, all these things to relax the muscles, to let all this shit come out, drinking more water, Tai Chi, so we're at a more subtle level now, Qigong, all these things, Hatha yoga, Yin yoga, all these things to help us to surrender and allow the soul to get in. You know, they call it the light body, because it's building up more power all the time, and it's your soul trying to alert you to your ego to say it's time to let that go now. So in the end, there's a soul ego fusion, right? I'm going on a bit now, but it's almost like you start radiating more positivity and more helpfulness and stuff like that.
And also, it doesn't have it's whatever resonates with you. So I dance. I love dancing. I've got my beautiful friend Sarah, she does teaches somatics, but she loves dancing too. So any of these things that it's for, like, again, for the individual, whatever whatever feels right and aligned for you. You love running, Joe, don't you? You know, and you do all manner of things now, don't you? But the swimming and all of that. But everyone's got their thing that they love in ways to move their body. Sometimes even just, you know, if you're paying attention and you're in that moment where you feel like, if you take all of the labels off everything and you can feel an energy or a pulse or whatever it is through your body, just move in whatever way it feels right for you.
I couldn't agree more. It's like mindful movement, and it's almost as if once you start it off, you get moved then, don't you? It's like, you know, and that's what I think when people say moved by spirit, I understand, you know, because sometimes you can do Tai Chi, right? And your arms start moving by themselves, you know what I mean? And it's almost like your soul is actually providing the animation. Well, that's animus anima, right?
Yeah.
And it's guiding you to the positions that you need to be in.
Yeah.
Guys, love, it's nearly time, but what I want is, I just want you to tell us about, I looked at your lovely website, your new website and stuff. So what's all that about then?
That is about, so we spoke about own your shit, which is a phrase that I used to use, well, still use when working with people. We've got to own our own shit. And there was a few years ago, I looked up and I thought, God, that'd be a really good domain name. So I bought the domain name. It was available, ownyourshit.co.uk, bought the domain name, then was inspired to create a logo, which this has all happened organically, and it has helped me along the way. It's almost like this creative outlet for me has supported me over the past few years, because there's times where I'm completely absorbed in it, which is another thing with the movement, our creative endeavors and what we're inspired to do creatively I think is a really big thing at the moment as well, and which is individual for everyone. But yeah, so I created a logo which has, and on the website you'll see, because I've broken it down into there's a spiral, and there's a glow in it, and then along the way my son had a lot to do with this as well, so big ups for Jack. We were just chatting one day, because he's such a huge supporter of everything that I do, and as you know, my kids inspire me all the time. But he said, we were just chatting about it, and I'd spoken to somebody from the domain server that where I was having some problems, and he was like, oh, this would be a really good clothing brand. He said, I love that. I love the name. I don't know how you managed to get the name, because obviously shit's a terrible word. But he loved it, and people were saying, oh God, I really love that. It's so catchy. It's so brilliant. And so I was talking to my son, and I said, this guy said it'd make a really good brand. And he was like, yeah, it would, Mum, it'd be so good. So we it kept coming up and putting it away and all of that. Redeveloping and preparing, I would say. And as we were talking, I said, have you got any ideas yourself? He said, I've got a picture in my mind. I'll send it. I'll try and create it and send it to you. So he doesn't do that sort of creative. He's creative in other ways. He's quite sporty and athletic. But this conversation, I'll never forget it. And he was like, I'll call you back in a bit. So he went and got his girlfriend's iPad and was like, I need to create something. I need to show Mum what I mean. So, and he came up with the concept of the stick man, which is the sort of, I think it's one of the images that is used initially on the website, and that's because of him, really, because it's his original idea. So I designed the logo and done all of that. Then he had this idea of this stick man who was pointing at a blackboard saying, own your shit, you know. And so he showed me that, and then that just, it went boom then, and all of these images, I was like, oh my gosh, we could use this in a really powerful way of owning your shit. But then also the I am statements came into it, because what do? We own our shit, we acknowledge what's going on within us, we realize the stuff that needs to go, And then we affirm, I am. And so I've brought that into it. And the whole concept then is, we've got the Stickman family, which I've got hundreds of designs. I sort of went on one and ended up, it was like I was finding another one and then another one. And it's going to be whatever it means for the individual. So, and you know, that there's as many I am affirmation statements as you like.
I mean, that's, you know, that's why I love, because I've got the I am approach to health and well-being, and that was given to me as clear as anything. But so was the F off approach to health and happiness, you know. And everybody I talk to, except my academic colleagues, thinks it's hilarious. You know what I mean? Because I say F off, and they go, "What do you mean?" No, focus on feelings first. Oh, right. You know, but they've already been hooked. Then you see, so I will knock that out and stuff like that, but it'll have to come when the time is right, because to be honest with you, I've never been busier in my life, you know. And we're down in Glastonbury on in October. I think it's the 17th, 18th and 19th, I think it is. For a Thrive, it's called the Thrive Symposium. And I'm going to be putting, you know, I've got some friends coming, Conquers Earth School there, you know, Lisa Marie, she's coming as well, and Dan. And
I met Lisa once.
Say again?
I met Lisa once. We were transferring source seeds, which is part of the crystallized roots movement, which is because that's another thing. I'm the well, what am I? The team leader for the south of England for the crystallized roots movement. So I've got these amazing source seeds that are still. So if anybody in the south of England, I've been through a phase where I've approached people and all of that, but it's like they're not ready yet, but maybe now we're coming into this time where people are actually going to be wanting to plant and grow and come together and collaborate in that way.
There's so much coming, because I'm really I seem to be energized in helping people to do more homeschooling as well, you know, and earth schools and back to nature, and really allowing the I am of the individual child to come out without any sort of misdirection and fear and stuff like that, you know. So for some reason, right, I'm in that field really and doing that, you know.
And like
Love, this has been fantastic. It's so lovely. It's just like a chat, isn't it, really? That's, you know, and but I think more than anything else, what I just like to say is that you know, for people, I think more and more people are realizing now that we've almost, like, for millions of years been programmed and conditioned into like slavedom, you know, and people are beginning to see that now. And I think that shift is coming in because of the way that the planets are realigning and stuff like that. Things I never believed before, but I've done a lot of study over the last, say, 35 years about the Vedas, you know, like an Ayurvedic medicine and yoga. And it all seems to be making a lot more sense, you know, because I was blocked off in a sort of biomedical science head. And it was just like my left side was just working, and I didn't pay any attention to my creative side, you know. I'm glad what happened to me has happened. It was shit when I was going through it, but now that I've come out the other side, I can clearly see the point of it all now, you know.
And Joe, you can bring the balance with that, all of that experience, because that's what I'm finding as well now. It's about the balance, whether it's we call it the masculine and feminine, right and left brain, all of that, you know, the side, even the sides of our body are attributed to all of that, aren't they, you know? But with that experience and that knowledge and wisdom, you and then the spiritual side, if you like, the metaphysical, this expansive time that we're coming into, is that allows you to speak and experience and share in such a expanded way.
I couldn't agree more. And how I see it energetically is that there's a central column, the spine, right, is being more and more pressurized now, and almost it's like a spiral, it's like a Kundalini awakening. And what that's doing is it's bringing both sides of the chakras, masculine and feminine, together, so that we're beginning to understand both points of view, you know. And I don't think anybody's going to get away with this, you know. So it's almost like let go, trust the process, you know, and all will be well. But if you want to hang on to your old ideas and attitudes and patterns and all that, it's going to hurt like hell. So anything you can do, drink loads of water, exercise, move, whatever blows your frock up, as they say. You know, some people mightn't like exercise, so they might do, like you say, dancing, or even pattern match weaving, or whatever
Yeah.
gives you some sort of a joy and a peace in your heart, you know.
Yeah.
And the way to get there is sit quietly with you, put your hand on your heart, and just ask your heart to take you back to what you used to get lost in when you were a child, before you were clobbered by society, really, you know. And if you do ask your heart, I'm only saying you don't have to do this, but you know, why don't you give it a try and see what happens? Put your hand on your heart, right? And it's almost like asking Alexa. You can say, please take me back to when I used to get lost in stuff. What was I naturally lost in? And then bring it back to today and start doing more of that, you know. Just a suggestion, not telling anybody what to do. It's just a suggestion. Kaz, love, thanks very much. It's lovely to see you. You're looking great. And I hope I see you down Glastonbury at some point
Soon.
or somewhere else. So have a lovely, lovely weekend, and I'll speak to you whenever.
Lots of love. Thanks.
And you. Thanks very much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.